Sinead O Connor, Empath or Narcissist, Part 14. Hello, I'm hgtudor. We now enter the final straight. The end is in sight. With regard to our detailed analysis of Sinead O Connor to make a determination as per my lexicon as to what she was. In this part, we're going to examine her relationship with her children. Her children have stayed silent about her. It's clear that they're very private people. However, O'Connor shares her thoughts and feelings about her children from her memoir, which provides us with probably the best place to learn more about the nature of the relationship she had with them and the way that she saw them. I have 4 children by 4 different fathers, only one of whom I married, and I married 3 other men, none of whom are the fathers of my children. I can honestly say that the father of my first child and the father of my last child are my best friends in this world. However, with the fathers of the 2 children in the middle, we would indeed cross the road if we saw each other. As I wrote earlier, my first child, Jake, was a very pleasant surprise, conceived because of the fact that a girlfriend of mine told me that day 14 of one's cycle is the safest, and so I did not make love with his father until day 14, which took place in some country town in England while a Madonna concert was playing on the television. I would say that Jake suffered some due to the fact that I was so young when I had him, and that I also had suddenly become extraordinarily successful in the music business. 3 weeks before he was born was the release of my first album. At age 20, I would not say I understood the concept of selflessness the way one ought to when one becomes a parent. I know that I was a good mother when it came to Jake and my 3 other children, but it's difficult to be a very good mother when you are a touring musician. I was affectionate and loving, but I was away a lot. And even when I was home, I was rather like an automaton, tired and worn out, and also very frightened that I might be like my own mother. I always made sure I had a nanny because I was afraid I might turn out like her. Pausing there, that appears to demonstrate accountability. Now, it's worth bearing in mind, of course, that this is what Sinead O Connor has to say about herself, and therefore this may include a degree of bias. Also, of course, that this was being written for the consumption of others, and if this was being created by a narcissist, they are going to portray themselves in a more favourable light. You might view as the fact of her saying, well, I was away a lot, and I was a good mother to them, but I was concerned about how they might turn out, i.e. that I might be like my own mother. It certainly shows emotional empathy, certainly shows accountability, shows that she cares for the children. Or you might just think that this is facade management by a narcissist, telling the story as they see it rather than the reality of what it was. It's important to bear that in mind, but also considering that there are no complaints from the children, although there's no praise either, and therefore, is it the case that this is indeed accurate, that this does show accountability because she recognised her shortcomings and didn't portray herself as the best mother in the world, albeit acknowledged that she was a good one? At the end of the day, this might have bothered Jake. I think it was read mistakenly as some part of me not caring, but I wanted to make sure that my children would never have to go through what I went through. If I were in some type of mood, I could go upstairs or I could leave the house, and my children wouldn't have to deal with that. Is that a parental abrogation of responsibility and duties, foisting them onto a nanny when you're in a mood? Or is this taking accountability, recognising one's limitations, and therefore deciding that appropriate action should be taken to protect the children? Having Jake while I was very young had benefits, especially in that we were the best of friends. As he grew older, we became closer. We were often more like friends than mother and son, which I suppose is not necessarily always a good thing, but we had a very beautiful relationship. It can be the case that narcissists treat their offspring more like friends than actual children. Of course, there are people who are not narcissists who do that as well, but also note that she recognizes that such a relationship as being friends was not necessarily a good one. My cooking has always been a problem for my children. I'm not a good cook. In fact, that is an understatement. One could demolish a house or break a window with anything that I cook. Consequently, Jake became a good cook at a very young age, and he now works as a head chef in a restaurant in Dublin. He has an enormous work ethic of which I'm extremely proud. This is a very, very hard-working young man. Jake now has 2 children of his own, a daughter and a son. So I am a grandmother to 2 beautiful kids currently aged 1 and 3. When I was ill 2 or 3 years ago, it was very difficult for Jake to be around me. But I am happy to say we are very good friends again, and I love that child with all my soul, just as I love all my children. In fact, I secretly tell each of them that they're my favourite, but I also tell them not to tell their siblings I said that. Every time I see any of them, I go, "You're my best, don't tell the others." Is that the triangulating behaviour of a narcissist, or is it simple humour on the part of a mother that loves them? You, of course, can make your own determination about that in the grand scheme of things. My daughter, Roisin, was not a surprise. She was planned. Her father is a gentleman by the name of John Waters, a journalist who used to write for the Irish Times in Ireland. We met so he could interview me about my controversial song Famine, which was on the album Universal Mother. I would not say that we fell in love. We did not. I had just had a miscarriage. We got on very well and agreed to have a child with each other, with the understanding that we would not be together. So we conceived Roisin and had an arrangement whereby she spent half the time with her father and half her time with me. While I have no relationship with John, he has been a fantastic father, an absolutely wonderful father. Is this simple flattery on the part of a narcissist, or is it genuine emotional empathy exhibiting that for somebody who she had a contested custody battle with? I'm very proud of Roisin, especially because she was so well behaved growing up. I can't tell you any mischievous stories, but what I can tell you is that she has a guardian angel. Not only have I seen this guardian angel, many of her friends have seen this little angel too. I didn't believe her friends who told me they saw this little girl angel, and I didn't believe a boyfriend of mine when he told me he'd seen this little red-haired girl too. At least not until one morning when I was pregnant with my 3rd child, Shane. And I was sleeping in the bed with Roisin. I woke up, and there the angel was, sitting on top of Roisin with her head in her hands, as if she were just bored and waiting for her to wake up. I saw this little red-haired girl wearing a red and white sweatshirt. It was so not scary that I went straight back to sleep. When I woke up again about an hour later, the little girl was still sitting on top of Roisin. I went back to sleep again, and when I woke up the next time, the little girl was gone. But a week later, I was berating Roisin over the state of her bedroom, in what I call the futility room instead of the utility room, and a huge 4-litre bottle of water chucked itself off the countertop and onto the floor. Clearly, the guardian angel wasn't very happy with me being mad at Roisin. On Roisin's 2nd birthday, she came rushing towards the table on which there was a carving knife with its pointed edge directly at her eye level. When she was a millimetre away from the knife, it lifted itself up into the air and moved to the left to get away from her face, obviously the work of her guardian angel. I have neither seen nor heard guardian angels around my other children, but I presume they are there. However, Roisin's guardian angel is such a strong character that she makes herself visible. Interestingly, like Jake, Roisin also turned out to be a chef, but in Roisin's case, she is a pastry chef. She trained in Paris and is now working in Ireland. She has tiny, dainty hands. She was always able to make the teeniest Play-Doh creatures with those delicate fingers of hers, and now she makes beautiful pastries and vegan cookies. I just think it's hilarious that so far 2 of my kids have become great cooks. I do notice, however, that they do not send their mother any care packages full of food. Since I have mild anorexia, I consider starving, but I would still like some of Roisin's pastries to arrive in a box, So I hope that after she reads this book, one will. You don't want to cross Roisin, and the only way you will cross Roisin is if you're a bigot. Roisin will get up and walk away from you. She does not have her mother's temper, thanks be to God, so she will turn her back on you and be quiet, and not bother speaking to you again. I admire her for her ability to walk away from an argument. I am inclined to run right towards one, and I aspire to be more like my daughter in that respect. Roisin is now happily married to a lovely man she calls Poldy. He's exactly like Roisin's brother Jake, which is very sweet. Roisin and Jake have an absolutely beautiful relationship and always has had one. They will literally sit on each other's knees, hug and cuddle. I don't believe they've ever had a row. If you mess with Roisin, you're going to have to deal with Jake. And believe you and me, that's not something you want to try. Notice that there is a reasonable amount of detail to the extent that one can include it in a memoir without making it all about your children. But the point is that she knows much of their lives, what they're up to, what they've done, etc. I'm sure she could have provided a lot more, but that does show that she has an involvement in their lives rather than there being an absence from their lives, which shows a degree of accountability. It's clear also that she's proud of her children, and that shines through in what she has to say. Of course, a narcissist can also be proud of the children, utilising them as the little mirrors. But there does appear to be a genuine care for her children, which would suggest the presence of emotional empathy. Or might you see it as simply cognitive empathy? Those are her first two children. In the next part, we're going to examine the other two children to see what she has to say about them.